second theme of my reading today is Ernest Becker's The Denial of Death. That book that was famous in the 70s, that whatever you do in life is somehow an attempt to deny that death is going to happen. Whether that's opening a plant and cider themed store in the mid-tier Rust Belt city, writing poetry, having kids, any of the crazy stuff that people do in their lives is just a denial of death. And the third theme of my reading tonight, or this afternoon, is I've had two poems that when I shared them with my first readers, they started screaming spontaneously and uncontrollably. I will begin my reading with one, I will end my reading with the other. All right? And this is the first poem in that book that's on the table over there for sale. It's called At the Moment He Was Conceived. At the moment he was conceived, his father, who had paused at the Franciscan seminary, emptied himself after swimming in a sea of sheets and skin, saw his reflection in his wife's pupils. One could only hope the moment was not ruined, contemplating divine judgment over choosing the wrong kind of biblical ecstasy. The boy, whose only memory of his father was set in a cancer ward, told me stories of an evil stepfather and the 1,000 invisible daggers passed around the dinner table. Years later, at the boy's wedding, his mother told me the story of the time he called from a landline on the very same college campus that separated them decades prior. His voice was so much like his father's, she momentarily forgot what era it was and who she was talking to. In that moment, in my mind, I heard the sound of a branch breaking. Now, of course, the guy who was screaming was the guy that poem's about, his conception, which, the dangers of poetry. The last one, the themes are a bit more universal, so good luck, everybody. The next poem, actually, the ending of this poem is right there. Actually, this poem ends right at that doorway back when this was a hardware store. This is called Greenfield Hardware. I used to live near an old-fashioned hardware store. The kind of place that had one of everything, but only the owner, who sat right there, knew where anything was. No sense in browsing, just ask or try to explain it, and he would produce it like he was performing some act of necromancy. One morning around 9, trying to fix a light before heading to work, I was missing a screw. And knowing Greenfield Hardware was the kind of place you could buy a single screw, nail, washer, I put a dime and the screw from the other side in my pocket, set out to walk up the avenue where the owner could tell you, just by looking, that's no ordinary screw, but a Phillips fine thread machine screw. Lost in my thoughts, I see an old man bumbling down the hill towards me, weaving bow-legged, wearing workman's pants, and the thick flannel jacket he probably wore when he walked the same path daily to a mill that closed 30 years ago. The bridge of his nose split open, blood trickling down his face. At the sight of the red streams, I fluttered through the realms of possible scenarios. A mugging, a fight. Was he hit by a car and stumbled away in shock? What kind of help can I give him? Should I run away? Bracing myself for the confrontation or heroism or other untold possibilities, drawing back my breath about to speak. I tried to stop, but I stopped with my face. I tried to stop, I stopped with my face. My breath stolen, motionless. I see my reflection in the door of the hardware store as the old man bumbled away, and I forgot why I came here. All right, this is called The Denial of Death, number 22. Trees bear silent witness to our personal sacred sites, living as we were when we were. Well, I'm going to start that one over again. Trees bear silent witness to our personal sacred sites, living as we were when we were there and in our absence. If the trees fall, think of rocks. And if you're lucky, there's mountains for you to ponder. All right, this is another true story of the mean streets of Greenfield. It's called The Third Time I Dialed 911 While Naked. 6 a.m., hidden monster nightmare interrupted, the diesel rumble of the 56U, distant car horns, traffic copters scoping the parkway, dreamland returned. Windows open for summer, sleep cycling through city rhythms, lost chambers of middle school subterranean blackboard cabins, the dead promising to rise. Moving season Friday trash day, the sound of a trash truck crushing a couch. A second longer crush, followed by shouts. Are you okay? Are you okay? Snap into consciousness, straight to the window, the violence of the morning sun, upside down gold 87 LeBaron in the middle of Haldane Street. Neighbor's Honda jolted out of its parking spot into the yard of an abandoned house. Stupid me leaning out the window shouting, did that just happen? Run to the phone drowsy and panicking. I almost forgot the number. Threw on yesterday's clothes from the hamper, downstairs and out onto the porch. Echoes of approaching sirens getting louder. He's sitting on my front steps, head in his hands, flattened PBR pounder cans sit on his headliner. Hey, can you help me flip my car over? I gotta get to work.
Oh my God.
Whew. All right, this is, I should have a book out next year called Saturday Night on Earth, and it's about going to punk shows and being a general music fan geek, and this is going to be my favorite poem from that book. It's called The Courts. We come in the night climbing a wooded path to abandonment, too steep, too dark for the cops to bother. It's Hazel's birthday, botanist zine wizard, she booked Detroit crust, West Virginia doom metal, Pittsburgh street rockers. Baked poison ivy and wild pawpaw cookies, greenbrier cake for us too. Illuminated by the bonfire, black locust trees climb heavenward, forming a cathedral embrace. Between bands we go into the woods, just beyond the sagging blackboard, to check on the generator, collect fallen timber for the fire, as we laugh about the time a Pop Warner parent waving their permit in the air chased the anarchist baseball league off the field below and all the way to the north side. We are here, Jem and Punky, souls who found new bodies in order to stay with us. Chris is lighting off firecrackers at people's feet like he's from Ohio, because he is. Suddenly, city dirt bikers rip through like an encore. Beyond a line of mulberries, traffic hums, people still out there trying to get somewhere in the modern world. I've got a life out there too, with a job, a history, a deep wound that draws me to these wild spaces. Assemblies where I learned acts of communion, reminders of what it means to be in the world with other lives, other life. All right, another Haldane Street poem. The not quite solitude of shoveling snow at night. Warm front pass through at dusk after a Sunday of snow. A chore I'd rather not do in the morning has me outside in the dark, shaking handfuls of salt on the 9 steps leading up to our front door. Primetime television glow seeping through the curtains of all the neighbors' houses. The slosh of distant tires on wet city streets. A shovel scraping on concrete the next block over. A pause to look at the house before clearing off our cars. White breaths dissolving. The sound of water trickling through downspouts, flowing down the curb to the storm drain. Stars peeking through the rolling clouds past the steep peak on the roof as boiling water pulses through the walls of our 100-year-old house. This is the denial of death number 46. Become an educator, because every doctor's appointment, meal in a restaurant, walk down the street becomes an opportunity for someone whose name you forgot to tell you how you changed their life forever. So I guess there's that, I don't know if you heard about this, but there's an election coming up. And I guess I'm going to read 2 election poems. I don't know if you've gotten like 8 threatening texts yet today in your spam folder about it. But this is called, and this is also from The Red Glass Cat, If You Want to Live the Magic Over Again in the Comfort and Safety of Your Own Home. They're $10. It's called Watching It's a Wonderful Life in 2017. George Bailey, everyman shibboleth, conceived as Capra's sword against the rising tide of atheism, identified by Ayn Rand as communist propaganda in an FBI report, Protagonist of a Trumper's favorite mawkish holiday melodrama, shouts from a bridge that became a pulpit of all the closing doors of middle-class frustrations. Watching the film feels different now that we're all stuck in our own little Pottersvilles, dreaming of the kind of warm and cozy Bedford Falls that only exists in uncritical nostalgia. Mr. Potter wasn't supposed to win, wasn't supposed to become president, as if old George and the American idea was just too strong to be defeated, as if all we needed was friendship, as if angels could redeem all the little capitalists, could redeem us all. All right, well, I got one more about the election. And so here's the thing, the election is important, but considering there are things that most people believe in, 60% of Americans, 70% of Americans believe in, ceasefires, single-payer health care, the fact that a national candidate would say they supported something that 60 to 70% of Americans believe in would be political suicide. It's also about organizing your workplace, organizing your neighborhood, voting for the right candidate, and making their life a living hell for the next 2, 4, or 6 years, depending on their terms, because that's how things actually happen. So voting is a step, it is not the end. This is called What It's Like to Lose a Parent to Fox News. Things were supposed to be different after sailing past the age your parents were when you first met them. Different, at least, with the one that's still around. But an adulthood of mature hopes, dreams, and triumphs was not to be. Childhood forgotten, no confessions, no reflections. Phone calls from mom last about 10 minutes. Small talk about the weather and football before the big immigrant takeover and the Muslim communists Biden put in charge of the government. 10 minutes before, sorry mom, I think there's somebody at the door. All right, back to Greenfield. At the corner of Tunstall Street, there's a triangle-shaped house wedged at the bottom of a street so steep the sidewalks are stairs. And in that house once lived an old man who, when it got warm, would watch his living room TV while sitting on a folding chair on his stoop, wearing only swim trunks, holding the screen door open, sticking his head inside the house so he could see. All right, so the denial of death, number 18. Starts with a witty remark, glances quickly escalate to a lick and fondle, the endorphin rush of a bearskin embrace, a steady build of tension, melodies of pleasure, the sudden need to change the sheets. Going to be 50 in a few years, medical science doesn't have a lot of time to figure out how I'm going to live to be 100, but it's hard to acknowledge my life is half over from where I'm laying. I know that the French call this moment the little death. Man, sometimes the French can just be too much. All right, this poem is in 6 parts. It's called Summer in Greenfield. I guess this also could be titled Why I Live in Regent Square Now. 1. When the kids got bored by throwing bricks at buses, they would come down off the hill to stand in the mist floating from the car wash. 2. Opening the windows meant inviting a random cloud of trash pile odor into your kitchen because the college students across the street didn't understand. Taking out the trash meant it had to be in a bag or a can that you dragged to the curb on a special day of the week. They just thought it had to be outside, and the trash collector did the rest. 3. Waking up every morning, wondering if anyone I encounter will decide they want to get into a fist fight today. 4. Nights on the front porch, trying to stay cool, drinking lemonade, watching the streetlights, keeping a baseball bat tucked away nearby, just in case. 5. Sweeping broken glass off the sidewalk every morning on weekends. 6. Late August, early September, the heroin pipeline into Pittsburgh goes dry. Once you learn this, suddenly everything about everyone around makes a lot more sense. All right, last one. Thank you, by the way, for making this happen. And thank you for this space and inviting us in. And thank you, everybody who came. you know, because mine's in constant Instagram posts. Denial of death, number 99. Know that once in the spring of 1998, when I lived in an old house in the country, spent a rainy day listening with all the windows open to classical music records bought at an estate sale, the smell of rain and damp grass mixed with the moonlight sonata. It was the first time I thought I understood eternity. There were other moments in solitude, in intimacy, in crowds, pleasures of discovery, of aesthetics and deadly sins, times when my ribs tingled when I thought about love. Sometime after we are born, we become convinced something is supposed to happen to us. Spend our whole lives looking for a train that never arrives, or realize decades later, a glimpse is all we are afforded.